Hey y'all, it's Steve, Hobo with Wood. And this is going to be the first in a series of probably 3 or 4 videos on engraving images, pictures on mirrors. It's going to be a lot of information and too much information to try and cram into one video. And we're going to do this in steps. First thing I'm going to talk to you about are the mirrors. So hang around, we're going to get you the information you need to get what you need so we can start this together. Okay, so if you've worked with computers long enough, you've probably heard the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. Well, that's true with lasers and your projects. If you start with garbage, you're going to end up with garbage. So a couple of things you got to know right off the bat is you got to have a really good, high quality, high resolution image to start with. And it's got to be a really good image. It can't be something that doesn't have a lot of contrast. If it's kind of a pale picture and you're not able to work with the photo editing software to really bring out the contrast and create some differences in that photograph, you're not going to get a good result when it comes to laser engraving images. So you need a high quality image with some good contrast to it, and you need a good quality mirror. If you get one of these cheap mirrors from a dollar store or something that is done with like a paper mylar backing, then it's not going to work as well as with the same processes that we're going to talk about in this couple of videos. So first thing I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to share a link with you right here to buy some mirrors. You're going to need to get these mirrors, come from Amazon. They're going to be very inexpensive, and you get a pack of 50 of them. A pack of 50 4-inch mirrors. Now, why you need 50 4-inch mirrors? Because this is 11 of those 4-inch, or those 11 of those 4-inch 50 mirrors I had, and these 11 are the ones that I used for all of my tests and failures. It took 11 attempts and testing to end up with one good image. Now that I've got that and I know what my settings need to be to replicate this, I'm going to be good. I can probably get my image set up and use the settings that I learned from this testing to recreate that with another image. But if you go and pick up 3 or 4 mirrors at the dollar store or at Goodwill and you try to do this process, and you're going to end up with different results. And when you go, how that didn't work? Well, no, you didn't. We weren't working from the same playing field. So first, go to this link, get you a pack of 50 4-inch mirrors, and these are cheap mirrors. I mean, you're buying. In fact, let me just look here. You're buying 50 of them, and let's see, 50. They're $19 for a pack of 50. At the time of this recording. So you're not paying a lot of money for this. But this is where you're going to need to learn to do this technique. And then if you go with a different mirror, and you'll know how to reach and get the optimum settings for those mirrors. Because not all mirrors are created equally. As I said, some of the cheap mirrors I've seen from the Dollar Tree or Dollar General, they are done in a manner where the glass actually has like a mylar, a paper with mylar on it glued to the back of a piece of glass, and that mylar is what's creating the mirrored effect. And you can actually take your fingernail and scratch that paper up. And so that's going to give a different result than this process. This is some type of liquid based silver something. I'm not real sure exactly how this mirror is done, but it's not paper. You can't scratch it off with your fingernail. Then there's another mirror where they actually use a a silver plating process where it's got a liquid bath, and there will be a dark gray material on top of it instead of the white material on the back of it. Those give really good results. That's what I use to create the lion engraving that has been an extremely popular video. But first thing you need to do is get a pack of 50 of these. Once you get a pack of 50, you're going to start with just a materials test in LightBurn. So if we jump over to LightBurn, if you're not familiar with the materials test, let's see here, go into LightBurn and go to Laser Tools, and right here, Material Test. Now, this particular successful piece was done with the Rolly Lasermatic 10 watt diode. And if you're working with a 10 watt diode laser, you're probably going to have the same results, or very similar, depending on your maintenance of your laser, the age of your laser, the power, the variations. But that's why you need to do these tests yourself. Now, when I did my material test, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 material tests alone, just testing variations of power and speed settings. And what I'm looking for is a true gradient. This one almost looks uniform, except for that very last column. You can see it's kind of gray. Maybe it'll show up, or let's see if you can see it that way. This one up here is going to be more reflective. It's got less mirror burn off. Then all the mirrors burn off. But then others, like here, you did not get the full burn on all the grid. So that one was somewhat promising, but still not the effect I was looking for. So you're going to have to do these material tests to find your settings. And initially, I think this one was the one I ended up going with. You can really start to see that column has a full range of how much was removed there. So if you get the same mirrors that I'm recommending, then you're probably going to be, and you're using a 10 watt diode laser, you can probably use the same settings I'm working with and come out with some pretty similar results. But to fine tune it, you may have to do your own test, which is why I'm showing you where to find this and how to do it. If you do not get these same mirrors, I can almost guarantee you my settings that I'm about to share with you aren't going to work. But I found with these mirrors, my optimum settings to get using grayscale, to get a full range of color or lack of color, the differentiation between the contrast in the photos. I used a speed of 35 millimeters a second, or 2100 millimeters per minute, with a max power of 40% and a minimum power of 15%. So 2100 millimeters a minute, or 35 millimeters a second, with a max of 40 and a minimum of 15. That gave me my best result on this mirror with the image that I was working with. That's another thing. Depending on how you've got your image dialed in and contrast, you may find that that doesn't work for you either. So knowing how to use that material test is crucial. And the best way to figure it out is do them and do them and do them and do them till you start seeing the result that you're looking for. And again, what I'm looking for, and I'm going to try to hold this. If you look at the top line up here, that's completely removed out to where it's just a frosted glass behind it. And as you come across, then you start to get down to where it's almost mirrored. So that's the 35 millimeters a second, or 21 millimeters per minute speed. and that's 40% power, and that's 15% power. So you've got a 4-inch mirror that you can work with, and you can change the size of those material tests. And some of you are going like, well, why did you waste that whole 4-inch mirror to do one material test? You could get several on one mirror. Well, I did a few of those like that. You know, there's a small material test, and then I tried a couple small images. But what I discovered is because of the irregularities in the way the finish is put on the mirror, that it was hard to get a really good test result on such a small material test. So that's why I used the entire, I think just the regular default settings and the size on the material test, and used an entire mirror for each test. But once I figured those out, I then I had several promising possibilities on those scales before I decided on that one I just shared with you. And in doing so, I ended up doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different tests, different settings, trying to find the best possible image. And I'm going to share something with you, and those who have been jumping around and hopping around, they're going to miss this, and they're not going to get the results. I shared a little bit of it in one of the live streams, but let's see if I can find the image that's most like my finished. That's 150, it's 80. I think it's, I'll find, here we go. Well, this isn't, I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but the material put on the back of this glass, I'm going to try and hold it up close here. You can see possibly some horizontal lines running across there in the material. Well, that is a variation in the thickness and the way that that's applied to the back of the glass. It looks like it might have been rolled on or something instead of submerged in a bath, and that creates peaks and valleys on the back of that surface, and you can actually feel those. Well, that also, as it tried to run the laser run its job in the image, you can see those lines. In this case, there should be horizontal lines that run through that image. That is not in the photograph. That's a result of the uneven burn within the glass and trying to remove the material. The way I overcome that is I increased my lines per inch, and I changed my scan angle. All right, what are you talking about? Well, let's jump in here at LightBurn and I'll show you. So right here is where you change your line interval, and over here is your DPI or your lines per inch. They call it dots per inch, but that's if single point's a dot, but a line. I used 500 DPI or 500 lines per inch, and I used a scan angle of 22 degrees. Now, I don't fully understand it because I'm not a scientist. I've just read enough to be stupid. The human eye, when it sees an image, a photograph or picture, especially if there's a horizon in it, it's easy for them to pick up that horizon as being a flat, 90-degree line if the picture's taken square. And you can see that helps create that 90-degree line pattern. Well, you can also easily pick out 45 degrees, and you can pick out 90 degrees. The human eye sees those really, really easy. But what it doesn't see are increments of 22.5 degrees. You can't do half degrees in LightBurn, so that's why I do 22 degrees. But if you took a straight, in fact, if you just took an image of lines and you were at 100 lines per inch, and they were all done at perfectly 0 degree scan angle, you would see those 100 lines very easily, and you'd see that they were perfectly horizontal. Then when you rotated them to 45 degrees, you would also see those very easily. But when you did them at 22.5 degrees, or in this case 22, the eye doesn't pick out each individual line quite so well. It's science. I don't understand it. So when I'm doing images and I'm wanting to help hide any of those flaws, either in the material or in the photograph, I do my images at 22 degrees or increments thereof. 22 or 40, 22 and a half twice is 45. No, not 40. No, we'd go past that again. So 45 plus 22 and a half. That's why I don't do the math. I just say 22 degrees and be done with it. 67 degrees, give or take, 66 degrees. But that's one tip that most people who have started watching this aren't going to see, and are not going to get the results. Increase your DPI in LightBurn, which is right here, or your line interval. And what that's doing is it's going to make the line of the laser that much, actually overlapping is what it's going to be doing. Now I'm going to share a tip with you that even fewer are going to see because they got so bored with the whole talking about the scan angles. Another huge must when you're trying to do photographs, be it on wood or when you're trying to do it on glass, mirrors, whatever, you must, what I call, pre-focus the laser. I think Rich uses defocus, I think. But what we mean when we say that is we're lifting or raising the focal point from the surface of the material. Grab my step gauge here. So if this is laying on my laser bed and I put my step gauge on here, right here, that first step is what Rolly says is the focus point if I was engraving this material. But since I'm doing an image and I'm working on glass and I'm using a very, very high DPI or lines per inch or dots per inch, and I want to have some overlapping, I pre-focus, raise it up here. So I'm lifting it about a millimeter and a half above the optimal focus point if I'm going to do an engraving. Effectively what that does is it's now enlarged the size of the laser beam by the time it hits the material. So now instead of it being that 0.08 perfect focal point, if it is truly a 0.08 laser, it's now lifted, and now instead of using a fine point ballpoint, now you're starting to use a medium or large point. So you've just took your focal point from here to here. And by doing so, and using that very high LPI, when that scan, they're actually overlapping each other. So you're going to have less chance to see images like this, where you see those horizontal lines run through there, because it's going to be overlapping each of those several times, making that as clean of a burn as possible. And that is how I got to that. And I hope that shows well on camera. Mirrors on camera are always very difficult to get a good image. But that turned out as close to a photograph as you can possibly get. And I'm getting ready to send this one off to, this is actually an image of his wife that just passed. I'm going to send this to him as a gift. And I'm going to make a larger one, hopefully in a shadow box that lights up and be really nice if this is received well. So that's video 1 on the steps, test, procedures, and products you need. The next video we're going to get into actual practices of doing this, but you need to get these in order to be able to accurately repeat what I'm doing and not be able to go, well, it won't work for me, it won't work for me. Well, get these, and then if you've got a problem, we can figure it out. But if we're not working with the same materials, especially with mirrors, with all the different irregularities and all the different types of mirrors, I wouldn't even know where to start if you were having issues trying to follow my process. So, until the next video, I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood, and I'm out.